All right, Dan, here we are after round two of the playoffs, and we're here to recap what turned out to be some really, really good games in the second round. We knew it was going to be that way. We talked about that, Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, you really kind of whittle out some of the teams in the first round. You get to that second round, and you get some really, really good games. So, and there were a lot of them. Some blowouts.
You're always going to have blowouts. A couple of those.
Yep, but some really good games that came down to the wire. One of the things we like to talk about a little bit, Dan, is what we learned.
Yeah,
what'd you learn in round two of the playoffs?
Watching some of these teams that play, these teams that are really good and advance, regardless of conference, Joe. They play ferociously. I mean,
yes.
as within the rules, but they block ferociously. They tackle ferociously. They run the ball ferociously. We kind of had a good time with and made light of some of the offenses west of 39 and
right.
But man, do those kids run the ball hard. I mean, they are just impossible to bring down with one guy.
Yeah.
And so you just see that all over the how hard kids are playing, how hard they hit, the hitting in these games. Again, it's both offensively and defensively, blocking, through the echo of the whistle, frustrate. I mean, it's something that you can take. It's a thread, I feel like, from one game to the next. I haven't seen all the games. I know there's some, I guess you'll call them finesse teams out there, but I bet they've got an aspect of their team, the defense, whatever it may be, the blocking that is ferocious. That's one thing I learned, that they play really hard, and they are aggressive.
Yeah. So do you think being in the playoffs has something to do with that? Or do you think that is something that's instilled in them as a team throughout the season, getting into the playoffs, and that's why they're here, that's why they're good, is because they play this way?
The latter, yeah. I think that is ingrained from them, in them from day one or from the time they enter the program. If you are a lineman, you are going to block and drive people until the end of the whistle. If you are a defensive player, you are going to hit people in the mouth over and over and over again. If you're running back, your legs are going to churn, and you are going to drive and not let one person bring you down. I truly think that is something that I saw. The tailbacks really stuck out, and the hitting on defense, but the tailbacks carrying the ball in some of these games, just driving their legs and not stopping. And the other thing, my second takeaway, there's an element to this. There are some teams that are bigger physically than others, but there's something to be said for being big on the football field.
There is.
I mean, and not just big up front, not big linemen, not just big offensive and defensive linemen, linebackers that are thick, defensive backs that are put together, big arms, big shoulders, their legs. I mean, you see a difference, and it's almost throughout the entire team that there is a size element to this that is a factor. Not the only factor. I think ferocious is most important.
Yeah.
But size of your team has definitely been a factor in at least the games I've watched, and I think it plays.
And then if you've got the size and you're ferocious, how
really
good does
combo.
That make?
Really good combo. Yeah, really good combo. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that about the size, because I was reading about the Joliet Catholic Sacred Heart Griffin game, and I don't know, it was maybe 6 to 8 paragraphs long. What they talked about in every paragraph, they were talking about Joliet Catholic and their size and their speed and the combination. And the coach from Sacred Heart Griffin said, we got to get in the weight room.
Yep.
That's what he said.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He said, we have not seen a team like that all year. He said, I've never, he said, that team is unbelievable.
Shout out to Rudy, one of my old strength coaches at Northwestern. Rudy still operates Rudy's gym. I don't know how often he's there anymore. Probably as often as ever. But those guys, they do it the right way. I don't think they've changed too much of what they do. They believe in those core lifts, and they are. It is very noticeable when Joliet Catholic takes a field. Like, whoa! It makes you go, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. And again, that is throughout the team. That is not just the line and the linebackers. It's everybody. The running backs.
You're right.
Yeah. And the other thing, my last thing.
Yeah.
We all learn bias at a young age. We all get biased. Man, some of the officiating. Oh, I don't know if it's biased or not. And it was both ways to me. It was like, some. And it wasn't always against the Catholic League. It was also against the teams they were playing too.
Yeah.
But man, it just felt like it. And I'll say this about the officiating. They do a good job. They're working their butts off, but someone has got to tell them right before they take the field or right before the fourth quarter, do not let your calls determine this game.
Right.
Let the players, it's got to be egregious, at the last drive. And I'm and it's got to be egregious in the playoffs for some of this. And, the best officials that I encountered over my coaching career were the ones that would come over and say, Coach, I'm going to start calling this on this kid. He's done it 2 times. I've told him once, it's going to start being called and you're not going to like it. I'm like, all right, let us take care of it. And maybe they called it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe you were able to correct it. Maybe it's something that you couldn't correct. And so you ended up getting calls, but at least you understood, but these calls late in the games to, propel drives that don't look like really bad fouls. It's hard to find the penalty, whatever it might be. And again, watching on video is one thing. I know they're doing as good a job as they can possibly do. But man, I just would love to see it decided by more of the players than officials late in the football game.
Yeah, and there were a couple of games like that this week where it came down to that, unfortunately.
Right.
And even during the game, I think I know you were out at the Montini-Byron game.
Yeah.
And I think I texted you during the game. I said, how many false starts have they called already in the first quarter?
Yeah.
I thought these teams have run this offense, both of them, all year long. And now all of a sudden, each of them gets three false start penalties called on them within the first quarter and a half of the game. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Once you started to see that, I was looking for it a little bit, and I could see a tackle, as the defenses amp up, Joe, right?
Yeah.
If I'm that offensive tackle, I'm thinking trying to get down to this 3 technique is much more difficult than it was in week 4 against whoever else.
I haven't seen a kid like this before. Yeah,
this is different. I better get a little bit of head start, So I think some of the defenses can be not blamed, but attributed, to the false starts. The guys are trying to get a jump, and that could be a playoff thing too. But I thought the same thing. I thought, it felt like Byron had a lot more in that Montini game, a lot more false starts.
Yeah.
And especially throughout the game, some I saw, some were pretty blatant. You're like, oh, there he did it. Whoever did it, this time, and you could see it. But I thought the same thing. I thought they run this offense. This is all they do for 80 plays a game, and exactly. It's like, how is that happening? But it could be a number of things, right? But if we have any officials that listen, just hold your whistle in the fourth quarter.
Swallow your whistle.
Yeah. Varsity rules in the fourth quarter. Make it be blatant in order for it to cost someone or give someone the game.
Right. Well, we talked about maybe some point in the future on one of our episodes, Dan. We'll see if we can get an official on, right? And talk to them a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it might get a little adversarial.
It might. Yeah, maybe we'll give them a break till we'll give them a couple weeks till after the playoffs are over. Yeah,
I wonder what they would say about it. I know what they would say. A penalty is a penalty is a penalty, but it's like, man, yeah. Someone's not going to be happy one way or another.
right.
Side, but I felt like a couple that could have been no calls in some of the games I watched wouldn't have caused any angst by either of the sidelines. It just didn't look like a call, or it looked like a jump ball, or whatever. But
yeah.
Anyway,
all right. Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of these good games that we had, Dan, over the weekend, and we'll start with 8A, and we had one game in 8A, and it was two Chicago Catholic League teams matched up, and that was Marist and Loyola. And the first thing I'll say on this, Dan, is it's a shame that one of these teams has to go home at this point, because they are both really good, and you could see it in this game. I mean, all around good, on offense, on defense. They've got stars on both sides of the ball, who make big plays. I mean, they play with that intensity that you were talking about. They're playing fast, and it's just they both have really good years, and it's a shame that Marist has to go home. I would have loved to have seen this game in the state final game, but that's not the way it is. And Loyola did just enough, to pull out a 24-20 victory here against Marist. Ryan Fitzgerald had another good game, threw for 4 touchdowns. Marist quarterback Jake Ritter, he had a really good game as well.
He was ridiculous.
Really good. I think he had 166 yards rushing, and he threw for another 135 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's the way this game went. And it came down to the final couple minutes. So it was billed as a really great game, and it turned out to be that way.
Yeah. And I always look for dog pound or dogs, having big games. Mickey Maher, dog pound member.
Yeah.
Block punt. It was kind of the catalyst I felt like Loyola needed. It was kind of a back and forth in the first half, and that block punt. It looked like Marist might take control in the first half.
I thought so.
Yeah. They kind of went up and down the field, long drives, big plays, great efficiency. I got to give Loyola's defense credit. They played a lot better in the second half. Ritter was on fire, but another thing I saw in all these games, several teams stopped turning the ball over on downs. People do not like to punt or kick field goals or try field goals. But, it was – the cast was the same for Loyola. Robinson with a big punt return, right? Mm-hmm. Excellent in special teams. McPherson, Ritter with a long TD run to give Marist a lead. McPherson catching a pass from Fitz, and Fitz to Vradenberg, 2 touchdown passes. So Zeman with a field goal. It was like everyone that has excelled during the year. Loyola does a good job. They're players who need to make plays, step up and make plays when they have to.
They do. I know there was not a ton of mention of McPherson, in any of the articles after the game and that, but I watched a little bit of the game, and every time Loyola needed a big play, needed 8 yards or 7 yards for a first down, guess who got the ball?
Yep.
It was McPherson, and he did not disappoint. So, I mean, those kind of players are hard to come by. I mean, he is just tough-nosed, and he does it all. I know he gets a lot of credit, as he should. I know Fitzgerald does as well, but I really like the way McPherson plays.
Yeah, really good. They're going to be fun to watch. A good rivalry game next week against Maine South. So 2 storied programs facing off. That's a really good quarterfinal game.
Yeah, that is. And that game you mentioned, okay, Loyola takes on Maine South, and that's at Loyola, I think,
yep,
too.
on Saturday afternoon. Yeah.
Saturday afternoon. All right. And we'll cover that later in the week. We'll talk about that game. Let's go to the next one here. And this is 7A, Mount Carmel and St. Charles North. Again, in this game, Dan, the stars, the players that we've talked about all year for Mount Carmel, obviously show up when they need to. Jack Elliott had, he accounted for 5 total touchdowns in the game. How many? They rushed the ball. Daniel Taylor, 8 carries, 123 yards and a touchdown. Madden Wilson, another running back, at 4 carries for 62 yards. They 2 touchdown throws to one to a freshman, Marshawn Thornton, who I don't know. Have we talked about him all that much this year, Dan?
I think he came up during the season. So I think I don't know what level he was playing on before that, but clearly he's ready for varsity football.
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking about? So they've got Marshawn Thornton, who's a freshman, and then they've got Quentin Burrell, who's a sophomore, who had 5 catches. I mean, how dangerous are they going to be for the next couple of years? At least at the wide receiver, forever,
right, and ever. Which is just what Mount Carmel fans want to hear. They're going to be dangerous forever and ever. Amen.
Yes. Amen. So this is a 48-15 victory for Mount Carmel over St. Charles North. I think the defense showed up as well, Dan. They only gave up, I think, under 180 yards of total offense to St. Charles North, who was used to putting up a lot of points during the season. So Mount Carmel really good on both sides of the ball again in this game. They're primed. They're primed to get into the quarterfinals, and they've got that path to the finals. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like they've peaked and come down a couple times during the season. Yeah, and injuries played a factor in that, or played a role in that, and so they seem to be peaking again. This game was a lot more of a blowout than I expected, and I'm not surprised by the 48 for Mount Carmel. I thought St. Charles North might be more dangerous and offensively, but it's a testament to Mount Carmel's defense. I know you don't like them.
Stop saying that.
I love them. No,
I know. And who's your favorite guy?
Javi Payne.
Javi Payne, yes.
Yeah. So they seem to be peaking again. Is the point and all that, and they on both sides of the ball. So they look primed and they're gonna be a really tough out. And just what they needed, another super dangerous weapon at wide receiver, right? Good grief.
The rich get richer for
Man
sure.
Alive, unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
So they're gonna face Normal Community next weekend, and I think that is at Normal, and Normal won their game against Mount Prospect 52-49, so it was a close game. But Normal, another team that can put up a lot of points and has done that throughout the season, so that's going to be a good game. It's
at you said at Normal, right? Next Saturday,
right? At Normal next Saturday.
Okay.
So,
all right. Is that at ISU?
I don't know if it's at ISU.
It's at Barta Dowling Stadium. I feel like that's ISU.
It does sound like ISU. It might be. Yeah. But I was thinking, I've been by Normal High School. They've got a really nice field.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
there's a couple different Normals. But that is, let's see. Nope. I'm just trying to see at Barta Dowling. That might be Mount Carmel Stadium, Joe.
Oh,
yeah.
Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm looking. At this too.
It's at Mount Carmel.
Okay.
I was like, where? I feel like we've said that before. Yes, that's Mount Carmel.
I'm shocked. I got that wrong, Dave, because I usually don't. Usually, I've got everything down to a
button
T.
Down. Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I spent all day poring over this stuff. Yeah, so. I appreciate you giving me a couple mistakes every episode, Dan.
No worries. Yeah. I'm on it too, for sure.
You do like to call me out on it, though, so that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next game. And this was St. Rita and Willowbrook. So let's see. This game, this is closer than I thought, Dan. And I probably shouldn't have thought it wasn't going to be this close. After I looked at some of the film or some of the highlights from this game, and Willowbrook's got a ton of weapons all over the field.
Yeah.
Now they lost their quarterback,
right,
and that definitely hurt them. And St. Rita wins, 21-9 in this game, but they were in a battle for a lot of the game until they were kind of able to pull it out towards the end. Nick Herman, another good game, another monster game, 128 yards. Again, their defense shows up when it has to. James Kingsbury, I think he was one of our dog pound members during the year, but
yep.
Yeah, he had a 15-yard fumble return for a score. Armbruster had a good game, so they did what they had to, St. Rita, in order to pull out this win, 21-9.
Yeah, and Justin Buckner, dog. Woof woof. Yeah, he was outstanding as well. So they play really good defense. It's going to be, I don't know anything about Quincy other than they score a ton of points. And so that'll be good to have to do a little research on them and watch a little film. But
they're really good, Dan.
Yeah.
The other teams in that conference, and and a couple of them that we've talked about, the other good teams in that conference who've played some good games in the playoffs, they all lost big to Quincy. So it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see how good Quincy really is too. Because they sound and look like on paper that they are the real deal.
Yeah, they do. So yeah, but St. Rita plays. They can control the football if they have a chance. Nick Herman's a big deal. The way Armbruster can run and kind of a short. They can be effective in a short passing game. So I'm going to guess they're going to try and control the football in that one. But enough. We'll hold that for later this week. But they get a great win over Willowbrook.
All right, so let's go to the other 7A game, and that was Fenwick and Downers Grove North. And I didn't listen to our prognosticus episode from last week, Dan, but I thought I recalled that you and I both said that we thought this might come down to the defenses and being a defensive battle here.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it was. Right. So does that say something about us that we're that good?
We know what we're talking about. Our prognosticus are that good.
Our prognosticus are that good. They say, watch the defense.
Yep.
That's what happened. I mean, this game was, Downers Grove North won this game as time expired by kicking a 28-yard field goal. They won 13-10. But both offenses really kind of struggled. I felt like, and I did watch some of this game, Dan, I felt like they were able to move the ball in the middle of the field, but then when they got in the red zone, inside the 20, both teams, they just could not score touchdowns.
Yeah, the Downers Grove North defense is stingy. They've got some studs on there, and the Edwards is the same Edwards family. He's a really good player. Downers Grove North, obviously we talked about how their offense got a lot of pub with Owen Daniels and they got a great tight end who had a nice game. Fenwick got great contributions, from Raphael Stewart. He was outstanding at the wide receiver position. Jack Paris, in the Wildcat formation, direct snap for a touchdown, and this was the game, Joe, one of the games I was thinking about where I felt like the officials could have swallowed their whistle on that last drive.
Yeah.
The game was good enough that I felt like it deserved overtime. And it was a tough defensive game. Just what we thought, hard hitting. Fenwick will knock your block off.
Yeah.
Right. I say that all the time. And, Tommy Thies was outstanding.
Again.
Again, can I segue for a little bit or go to a little, side here, taking a side, a tangent. Yes. That's the word I'm looking for.
Tangent is good. Yes.
As a Northwestern alum, can we please recruit some of these kids? I want some of these kids locally to come. I don't know if if they don't clock as Big Ten speed or whatever, but my God, are they football players?
Yes. Jack, are you talking about Jack Paris?
Jack Paris and Tommy
He's
Thies,
one of them.
both.
Tommy Thies.
Yes. I would take both of them in purple, next year. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a feeling like some of the schools think that Jack is a tweener, right?
Yeah.
Where is he going to play?
Right.
But you know what? All you have to do is watch him play on the field and the things that he can do and the things that he does. And, for me, I would say I want that kid and we will find a spot for him.
Yeah.
Right?
I want more football players.
Yes. I want more football players is exactly right. And Jack Paris and Tommy Thies are football players. So
no doubt about it.
I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Yeah. But Downers Grove North, again, they have football players as well. They did a great job, just kind of keep pecking away at the Fenwick defense and had a big drive in the fourth quarter, aided by a couple penalties, and I felt like we're just a little. And so anyway, it was a tough loss, but a great season for Fenwick.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say about Downers Grove North, their kicker has got ice in his veins.
Yeah,
I mean there was 3 seconds left on the clock. They then called a timeout to ice him. He comes out, and you can see, Fenwick is lined up, really ready to get a push and get the block, and this kid just hit it square on in the wind. Right through the uprights.
Split the uprights, they said.
Really, really nice.
Yeah.
So, give him kudos.
Kudos, and Dino Gregorio for Downers Grove North, big part of their offense. He's one of those guys, just does not go down, just will not stop his legs and go down with one guy. And as good as Fenwick's defense is, that guy made him earn it, made him earn every stop. So like I said, congratulations to Downers Grove North.
Yep. Okay. They move on. And let's see. Let's move on here to Dan to the 5A games, and the first one here is Joliet Catholic versus Sacred Heart Griffin. I didn't expect this score, 49-0. Joliet Catholic, wins over Sacred Heart Griffin, who always has a really good program, right, and really good teams. Now I know they ended up 6-5 this year. I think they said they're, a little young, but as we mentioned earlier in the episode, Dan, the coaches and players for Sacred Heart Griffin, all they could talk about was how big Joliet Catholic was and how they just out physical, Sacred Heart Griffin in this game, pushed them all over the field. Ran wherever they wanted to run and however many yards they wanted to run too. McGreeny had a big game again, running back for Joliet Catholic. Ferocious, another ferocious guy. So, Joliet Catholic, another team that's really battle tested this year, and now that they've gotten in the playoffs and are playing some teams, from other parts of the state, they're really showing how talented they are.
Yeah, it took them about 3 minutes, Joe, in the first quarter to figure out, okay, we've got 3 of the top backs in the area, if not the state, and they run behind what might be the best offensive line in the state. So we're just going to do that. And they just started punishing and punishing and punishing over and over and over. And when Sacred Heart would get the ball, their quarterback was running for his life. Rocco Powell, D lineman, is a man. He's relentless from inside tackle position.
Yeah.
Every tackle Joliet Catholic makes is done with anger. And their safeties are big hitters. And it was an overwhelming game to me to like watching Joliet Catholic. They literally overwhelmed Sacred Heart Griffin, which The thing I said about this game coming into it was Sacred Heart Griffin was kind of finding their way a little bit, and they were developing this passing game. And I said, you better not be developing anything when you play these guys. You better have it locked down. And it kind of showed. Joliet Catholic was clearly the better team, and teams are going to have their hands full with JCA for the rest of the state playoffs.
Yeah, they are. And Joliet Catholic goes to Peoria this coming weekend to take on Peoria High School. So, do I have that right?
I don't know.
I believe so. You don't have to look it up. I'm right. I know I am. All right.
You are.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So,
ding.
Finally, I got one right. The Nazareth and Woodstock North game. So Nazareth wins this game 42-20. They got out to a 42-0 lead here, Dan. I think within the first half, and then within the first part of the third quarter, they were up 42-0, and then they kind of coasted from there. I know they got a lot of guys some playing time, which is always a good thing in the playoffs. But Logan Malachek, another good game, just under 300 yards, 4 touchdowns passing. He had a rushing TD as well. His main target was Jake Stone. He caught 3 touchdown passes. One of our Zuka's Dog of the Week, Garrett Reese, he intercepted a pass as well. So the defense is showing up too. And they really just held down a Woodstock North team that was, what was their season, Dan?
Generational,
yeah. And, you feel bad for Woodstock North because you're right. It is a team or a generational team with some real talented players on it. But we know how talented Nazareth is as well. So
yeah, talented in their experience. They just never look phased. Anything that happens, if they face any adversity, it's you don't see any panic in them whatsoever. Very confident in what they're doing, and it shows, both on both sides of the ball. They just kind of own the moment, and they do it every snap. So not really surprised in this one. It feel like Nazareth is got to be, the team to beat. We're kind of on a collision course now that both teams will step up in competition, Naz and JCA and St. Francis, but might be a collision course for some Catholic League football in the finals.
Yes, it might be. And one of the more interesting games in my mind is Naz goes to Rochelle next week to play the Hubs. 10-1. Trounced Bennett in the we'll talk about that game here, but I think the Nazareth Rochelle game is going to be one of the better games in the state next week.
It should be interesting for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go to the Bennett Rochelle game, Dan, and this one, Rochelle just handled Bennett. Bennett hurt themselves in a variety of ways. But it just seemed like, oh, by the way, the score is 38-6. Rochelle beats Bennett. But it just seems like, when I was watching a little bit of the film on this, that Bennett just could never get on track, in this game.
Yeah. And when they did, they'd shoot themselves in the foot, whether it was penalties or turnovers. It seemed like they stopped themselves time after time in this game. They had some opportunities. You felt like they knew they could do some things throwing the football. They weren't able to run the football very well at all. But trying to stop this offense, and it seemed like when Bennett would get a penalty, it was hard to tell watching the video. It was like a 60-yard penalty. It's like, what happened? It went from 1st and 10 to 1st and 45. So that screams some add-on penalties, whether they're I don't know, personal fouls or unsportsmanlike or what happened. So it was kind of hard to tell. One of the articles I read said that they did get some unsportsmanlike, but yeah, Rochelle is really tough. They're one of those teams that will block you through the echo of the whistle. and so that can be frustrating to teams. But yeah, the story was the turnovers and penalties for Bennett, and then what I was concerned about was them being able to consistently stop Rochelle's grinded out offense. They're just not necessarily made for that, at least not this year. They just that whether it was size was a factor or whatever it might be, it just looked like Rochelle was going to be able to run the ball, probably whenever they wanted. And however,
Rochelle did what Rochelle does, right?
Yes.
And,
yes.
That Bennett really, I mean, other than maybe Moline, who they saw was at the first game of the year, maybe second game of the year, I can't remember, but they really haven't seen a team like this all year. That just lines up, blocks you one-on-one and gives it to one of their really good running backs, Gensler or Dylan Manning. They both went over 100 yards in this game. I think Gensler scored 4 touchdowns running, Dan. He couldn't be stopped, but you got to give credit to Rochelle's line up front, because they come out and they hit you as well. And would you say they blocked through the echo?
Through the echo of the whistle, yes,
they do,
which can frustrate a lot of people and makes for some angry players, and it can be challenging. But on the flip side, you say to yourself, I'd like our linemen to block like that, whatever, regardless of the team. It's like, I'll take that a little bit, But Kabaki was still over 200 yards. Long touchdown pass to Doyle gets called back. They did get a long touchdown, kind of a nice play up the middle, right up the seam to Declan Walsh for their only score. But they just put themselves behind the 8 ball too many times.
Yeah. And we said, okay, so Rochelle, they get another Chicago Catholic League team next week, and that's Nazareth. So we'll see how that game goes. We'll talk about that one later in the week, Dan. The other 5A game was St. Francis and Prairie Ridge. St. Francis wins this game 30-21. Zach Washington, remember we talked about him from St. Francis? We talked about him last week. He returned I think it was the opening kickoff, 92 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Guess what he did in this game?
Return to kickoff?
Return to kickoff. Prairie Ridge scores. They then kick off to Zach Washington. He runs 80 yards for a touchdown. The kid can just flat out fly.
Yeah, they are a big play machine, aren't they? They are
they are
big play after big play.
Yeah, and Brady Palmer had another good game. I think he was 9 of 16 for 231 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tanner Glock had a good game, wide receiver. He had 92 yards receiving and a touchdown. Also, I think you've said this name before, Dan, but I have not, so I'm going to butcher it. Dario Milivojevic.
Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good.
Might be a soft C at the end, but Milivojevic, I'm not sure.
All right.
I'm not sure. No, but you did
close
you
enough.
Did fine. Yes.
All right. Very good. Yeah. But anyways, what I liked about this is Palmer spread the ball around a little bit, and they've got so many weapons, as we've talked about all year, and he used them all in this game. And they really and their defense played well enough and held a Prairie Ridge team that has been blowing out a lot of teams, over the course of the season. They held them to 21 points and really didn't give up any big chunk plays, which Prairie Ridge normally gets. I think they might have had one play over 25 yards in this game. So St. Francis played real well both on offense and defense.
Yeah, they've got Tanner Glock, dog pound member. Boy, was he a borderline dog. Oof, man, he was so close. I loved watching him play. He jumps off the film. He's big time playmaker. They have great team speed, which helps in keeping those explosion plays down for a team like Prairie Ridge. They kind of count on that, and while they're a grinded out team, they do count on one or two big long runs from quarterback or whoever else it might be during the game. So the fact that St. Francis got up, a couple scores, helps. I think, that definitely helps in those types of games. So puts a little added pressure on some of those teams. But that's a great win for St. Francis.
It is. And because of that, now they get to go to Sycamore next week and take on the number 1 seed, Dan, who's 11-0.
Yeah. It's
another good game.
I know. And in some cases, some of these teams might get a little easier, next game than they had in round 2 because of how the seeds match up. But that should be a fun game. Sycamore's had a really good year. Sycamore, I think, beat Rochelle. They handed Rochelle maybe their
one loss.
Yeah, maybe. But so they're a good team. They can do a lot. They do run that similar off, but they will spread it out and throw the ball a lot as well too. So
yeah. All right. Okay, so that let's see. Yes, that's the last 5A game. Let's go to
what about? Did we talk about DePaul, Joe?
No. They're 4A.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yep, my bad.
All
sorry.
Right. See, sometimes I got it right.
Yep, you do.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about St. Lawrence and Wheaton Academy first. St. Lawrence, wins 26-14 in this game. Harley Riz, Dan, he's been a little bit hurt, for, towards the middle to the end of the season, but he had an outstanding game. He ran 24 times for 126 yards and a touchdown. He also caught a TD for a touchdown from Kwiatkowski, who was good again as far as taking control of the offense and running the offense. He makes a big difference for St. Lawrence, him being out there, and coming back from injury last week. He came back at the exact right time for St. Lawrence here. And they took care of Wheaton Academy.
Yeah, another close game into the fourth quarter,
Right.
So that was, we thought this was going to be a close game. I thought, St. Lawrence plays great defense. Probably we've probably underrated St. Lawrence's at least I have. I haven't talked about them as much as maybe Rita or Fenwick or some of those other teams.
Right.
But they have consistently played very good defense when they've been able to stay on the field with their offense. Where their defense has gotten in trouble is when they can't move the ball offensively and they're on the field all game. Now that they're got their full complement of players back, they figured out a really nice way to get a good mix of Harley Riz and Corey Less, who had a nice game as well, 2 touchdowns. So defensively, they've been very good. I read an article about Brendan Carroll being all over the field. He's playing with a club after it sounded like he shattered his thumb. Just from the article, it sounded ugly. But they play a good brand of football. Really looking forward to this game next week with our next team to discuss.
Our next team to discuss, St. Lawrence plays DePaul Prep. I think that game is at DePaul. But we'll talk about that game later. But let's talk about the DePaul Prep and Geneseo game. DePaul Prep wins this 38-13 over Geneseo. DePaul Prep really kind of put on a clinic in the first half here, Dan. I mean, they get out to a 31-0 lead in the first half and then just coasted from there. Juju Rodriguez, he threw for 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, one to Nathan Hathcote and the other to Braden Peavy, who had over 100 yards receiving. Nick Martinez, a running back, rushed for over 130 yards and a touchdown. They had a defensive back who we haven't talked about this year, Shea Griffith, who had 2 interceptions in this game. So DePaul Prep was just all over Geneseo and, handled them pretty easily. Now, Geneseo is a young team, really kind of coming on towards the end of the year. And, I think I saw that their coach said, what that team just did, talking about DePaul, is what we have to aspire to be as a team. So they're thinking about it the right way, but DePaul is really on a roll now. And talking about teams that are peaking at the right time, it seems like DePaul is.
Yeah, they're playing great football. Their offense is humming. And you mentioned, I think I read that they gave Nick Martinez, may have had a week off or didn't play much last week in their first round, and he looks fresh. His legs look good. Running really hard. Their passing game has been spot on all year. Their defense was outstanding this week, Joe, allowing only they forced 6 turnovers in this game. Yeah, and allowed less than 150 yards. So they're going to need that. It's a great prep game for St. Lawrence next week, and they're going to Geneseo, while trying to evolve their offense from that I-39 double
I-39
wing
West. Yeah.
Yes, they still run that. They've tried to keep it a little bit traditionally, but they've tried to mix things up, spread things out a little bit. I think they have a really bright future. I think they're a team that's going to have to be reckoned with next year. But DePaul, you're right. They're peaking at the right time. It sets up a great game between them and St. Lawrence this week.
Yes. Okay. All right. And our last game, Dan, is the 3A game. And this is Montini and Byron. And you were out at this game, Dan. So before we talk about all the other stuff in regards to the game, what was it like to be out there? What was the atmosphere?
It was electric, Joe. It was absolutely electric. So Montini, I don't know if they got this idea from Varsity Voices.
Maybe
about riding the Bronco, but they had a Bronco out there. I'm going to call it a Bronco. I don't know if it was, but I wouldn't know a Bronco if it bit me in the ass. But versus another horse. But my Suburbanite is coming out there.
It is.
But they had a horse lead them out onto the field, and then kind of ride up in front of the fans. The place was going crazy. They've got fireworks, they've got smoke, they've got music. Joe, it's the first game I've been to. You're going to appreciate this.
All right.
So what do you typically think you'd order at a concession stand?
Nachos.
Okay, or hot dogs or something.
Or a hot dog, yeah.
Popcorn, right?
Popcorn, yeah.
Guess what I had? Within 30 seconds of entering the stadium, I ordered
I don't know. You got to tell me.
2 orders of arancini.
Oh yeah, arancini.
Yes, one with Italian, filled with Italian sausage, one filled with Italian beef.
Oh my gosh! And did you a little marinara?
Yeah,
as well.
It came in the side. Yes, it came in the side. It was wonderful. Yeah, I took the marketing department out with me.
Yeah.
And so, we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet some of the parents that listen, and they do a great job. They've got a great atmosphere. It was an amazing game. One of the better high school football games I've been to in a long time.
Yeah. And why was that, Dan? Just because of, we talked about in our preview episode, we talked about how both of these teams just play outstanding defense. And we thought it was going to come down to that. And sure enough, it did, right?
Yes. Literally,
but
yeah.
Again, these are 2 teams you talked about in our opening today, that play fast, play intense, and play aggressive football, right? Especially on defense.
Yeah, you had ferocious blocking. You had intense hitting. You had a lot of big plays. You had a couple interceptions. Byron's defense. So they might not have the size that I talked about, but Joe, they swarm the football. Those things, the quick screens and the kind of quick passing game that Montini likes to do. Man, Byron was all over it. And Montini did a great job of adjusting. I think there was no score at halftime. So
yeah, amazing. Yeah.
It was a great defensive battle. Byron's really tough to stop. It felt like no matter what, it it looked like they'd be stopped for no gain, and you'd look and it was 2nd and 6, 3rd and 1. They're constantly in 3rd and short.
Yeah.
And 4th and short is like no big deal to them. That doesn't matter where they are on the field. They're going to go for it, and you almost can't stop them. In that. Now, Montini made him go the long way. No big plays.
Right.
Yeah. And in the second half, Byron was able to come up. They were kind of doing that dive play or power. We'll call it power off, where they kind of pitch it to the back and the quarterback leads. I talked about that. And he's one of 2 lead blockers, and they got linemen come in and they're blocking hard on the backside. Well, they started to run, I'll call it the JCA counter, where they kind of fake that and the opposite wing comes back the other way. And they were able to get a couple big plays. And they found that if they were having success doing that. So some 3rd and longs that they got big plays on. You felt like Montini had them stopped, and they ran this little counter play, and they went to it one too many times. They went to the same play on the 2-point conversion, and Montini was ready for it. Jackson Lane was ready for it, and was able to stop them by a half a yard. There's videos and pictures all over. It was unbelievable. The place was up for grabs. Premature fireworks. Montini thinking that they won, and there was still 10 seconds left. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah. It was a good game. I watched it. I watched the broadcast of the game, and it was another one of those games, Dan, where I thought both teams, were able to kind of move the ball between the 20s, and then just had a hard time scoring. And I could see, on both teams' defenses why that was the case, right? Because it seems like when they got to the 20 or inside the 20, they both would, they didn't have as much room to work with, and the defenses just held up, all game. So I saw Jeremiah Peterson. He had a good game for Montini. He rushed for over 100 yards. And,
it was hard fought. It was a hard fought 100. I was surprised when I saw how many yards. He had a couple big runs, especially late in the game, at critical time. So he stepped up. But Montini on defense, they kind of were a bend but don't break. And Vince Arion played a great game. He had an interception, I think, and he had a critical tackle for a loss late in the game. So they had some big plays by guys who are all conference players, and stepped up at the right time.
Yeah, and Jackson Lane, you and I were texting, and I think I texted to you. We haven't talked about Jackson enough.
No, not enough.
Not enough.
Right.
And I watched that last play where they stopped him for the 2-point conversion, and Jackson just makes an outstanding play there, Dan. I mean, there were other guys involved, right? Nicky Castaldo, he took out the lead blocker, and Jackson Lane read it perfectly, filled that hole, and hit him. And then the defensive back, who I can't think of his name, Hubner maybe. He comes in and hits Knoll, Braden Knoll from the other side. And it was just an outstanding play on defense, the exact way you would draw it up, Dan. And I give credit to Jackson there, because he just made an outstanding play. We like linebacker play, you and I both, and he made a great linebacker's play right there.
Yeah, he did. And Joe, I'll extend that, to it was how you draw it up. The whole day was kind of how you draw it up. And, two teams, and the fans were feisty with one another, and the atmosphere was packed all the way around. Just a great high school football game and atmosphere.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you were able to be out there, Dan.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That was fun.
So next week, Montini gets Princeton, who is 10-1. So it doesn't get any easier for him. But
no.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be another good game. But we'll talk about that one too later on in the week. All right. So Dan, that's all our games. We've covered them all. We've recapped them all. And,
snappy for us at 54 minutes.
Snappy, right. We always say 30 minutes or less. Never. Never happens.
We like high school football too much.
We do.
It is so much better than the football I watch on Saturday and Sunday.
It is.
Oh, God.
It's way better.
Not even close.
Not even close. It's way better than the game I watched today.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it. So,
right.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, we appreciate you listening wherever you're listening from. And make sure you like, follow, or subscribe, whatever you can do. And we will look forward to talking to you later in the week with our Prognosticus episode, and where we will preview the round 3 quarterfinals of
should be fun
games. Yeah, it'll be fun. All right, everybody. Thank you again, and thanks for listening. And we will talk to you soon.